Hi, I'm Dan from dancoopergarden.com and I'm going to show you how to sharpen a pair of snips or secateurs using my Nowaki sharpening bundle. So the first thing I'm going to do is soak my sharpening stone, and this is a ceramic whetstone. So it needs to go in some water for 2 to 3 minutes. Just an ice cream tub or a margarine tub is fine, and I'm just going to cover it with water. Leave it there until any bubbles stop coming out, and let's just leave it there for a minute or two. Now I'm going to show you how to sharpen a pair of snips like these, and what I've already done is to take the spring that goes here out and leave it overnight in a jar of white vinegar. So that's just your standard white vinegar, and I'm going to take that out now because that's been soaking. And as you can see, it's already moving around quite nicely, and I'm just going to use an old toothbrush. They're the most useful thing to have around. Always keep them. I'm going to use an old toothbrush to remove any rust and muck, and look how effectively that comes off. It's really, really good white vinegar at removing a little bit of surface rust or blemishes. Now, you're not looking to restore that to its full shiny order. That's perfectly workable as it is. I'm going to take a little bit of kitchen towel and just make sure that is dry. Remove the white vinegar from it. There we are, moving nicely. And I'm going to put a couple of drops of camellia oil on that. Now, camellia oil is a natural, very light oil. It's like natural WD-40. And you can see it's gone straight into all those little grooves, and that is already helping that to work nicely. I'm going to put this to one side just for a moment because we don't need it quite yet. So here we have the snips, and as you can see, they're not in a terrible state, but they need a little bit of cleaning up. There's a little bit of surface rust, but they're moving quite nicely. And I'm going to use one of these. This is a Crean Mate sap and rust eraser. So it works just like a pencil eraser does, but it removes sap and rust. And you can either use these with water or with oil. And today I'm going to use it with oil because that will save me drying them off in a minute. Just put a couple of drops onto there and it's ready to use. Now what you want to do is really get in, and you can see just how quickly that works. It's really amazing little bit of kit this. So you want to work right into the joints and all along the blades here, and you will see just how readily I can remove all of that surface tarnishing. You can get them right back. Look how lovely that looks, already shining away a little bit underneath. But the main thing is to really work around the joints, and this would be the same on a pair of secateurs. Just working around the joints. Get in here as well if you can. They've got useful little corners for that. And you can just see already all that brown gunge lifting off ever so easily. If you find that the Crean Mate gets a little bit dry in the process, all you need to do is put a little bit more oil either on the blades or on the Crean Mate itself, and just keep on going. It's a very satisfying job to do on a rainy afternoon. And there you go, you can see. I'm going to show you in a minute with a bit of kitchen towel just how much stuff that is removing. It's doing a brilliant job. There we go. But you don't have to get them back to their full shiny silver look. You just want to make sure that they're moving really well. So let's wipe all that away and see what a difference that has already made to the colour of the metal, and they're moving beautifully freely there already. And I'll do the same on the other side. There we go. And just get in there. And I think that's not a bad job. You could keep going at this for as long as it made you happy and get them back really silvery and shiny, but for a little routine spruce up, that is pretty good. And as you can see, they're moving beautifully smoothly there. So one more little wipe off. and I'm going to show you now how to sharpen them. So the next thing to do is get your whetstone out and just give it a little extra jiggle around to make sure it is absolutely soaked all the way through. Lots of water will have soaked into it, that's how it works. And that's very important, obviously don't use one of these dry. Now, whether it's secateurs or snips, you want to hold them in your hands a little bit like this and try and expose as much of the blade as possible. There are three really important things with using a whetstone like this. The first is only to sharpen the beveled edges of any blade, so whether that's your shears, your secateurs or snips like this, you're only sharpening that beveled edge, one there and one there. You're not doing anything to the flat side. Second thing is not to apply pressure to the stone, so resist the urge to push down like that. That's not what you want to do. You want to use the natural weight of the whetstone to do the sharpening for you. And then the last thing is just to make sure you sharpen really evenly from the very inside of the blade to the very outside so that you don't have sharp bits and blunt bits along the length. So taking the whetstone and taking the snips in my hand like that, the first thing I'm going to do is to put it on exactly flush with that bevel there. But that is not the bevel that you are sharpening, it is actually the edge. So you need to tip it up about 5 degrees like that. And starting on the very inside edge, you want to sweep along like that, leaving a gap between this and that. So place it on like that, tip it up, and then sweep along. And do that 3 or 4 times like that. Turn them over, as I'm doing here, hold them the same way, and repeat the process. So put it on, tip it up about 5 degrees, and sweep from the inside to the outside edge with no pressure, just like that. Now, when you've done that, you might want to use the flat side of the whetstone just to remove any burrs from the back of the blade, but it's not terribly important, but it's just good practice to do that. It'll remove any little flakes of metal that you might have. And that's pretty much done, or at least it should be. So I'm just going to dry them very quickly, just like that. And then here is the acid test to see if I've done a good enough job. So I've got a sheet of paper, just normal white paper, and I'm going to see if I can snip like a pair of scissors. And there we are. They are cutting beautifully and they don't need any more sharpening than that. So, a full working pair of snips. Only one thing left to do, or 2 things left to do actually. One is to put the spring back in. That gives you that resistance when you're cutting, so that's really important. It helps them snip backwards and forwards. Make sure they're absolutely dry. Put a few drops of camellia oil onto a duster or a cloth and just wipe over the blades, and that will provide a little protective coating for them which will stop any moisture getting to them and causing more rust. And there you have it, a nice, neat, fully working pair of snips. You can apply exactly the same principles to a pair of secateurs, the difference being that with these, and these need a jolly good clean and refurbish, but you're putting the blade on like that, tipping it up, and you're sweeping around the edge. So not in a straight line, but you're following the edge of the curve and pressing or not pressing, just letting the weight of the stone do the work for you. So these need a lot of extra work, but it was just to show you that it's a very similar process. And if you're not a fan of sharpening, these Giacotti hand shears have amazing quality of sharpening themselves. So for those of you who don't want to tackle it yourselves, get yourself a pair of these. They're absolutely brilliant for pruning and trimming and doing topiary and things like that. So there we are. That is how to sharpen a pair of snips using a whetstone, a Crean Mate and camellia oil, which are all available as a bundle at dancoopergarden.com, and you'll find all of those and the snips and other products on the website. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.